Imagine sailing across an ocean with no GPS, no satellite, no compass, nothing but stars above you, and endless water below. Most people believe only one man accomplished something like that, Christopher Columbus. But what if I told you there are old records, mysterious artifacts, and centuries of debate suggesting that sailors from Africa may have crossed the Atlantic long before Columbus ever stepped onto a ship? Now hold up. Before anybody jumps in the comments, we're not here to rewrite history overnight. We're here to investigate one of history's most controversial mysteries. And trust me, some of what you're about to hear will make you question why certain stories become famous, while others quietly disappear. Before we dive in, welcome to Hidden Black Files. If you enjoy uncovering forgotten history, hidden documents, and stories they rarely teach in school, do us one favor. Hit that like button. Subscribe. Join the Hidden Black Files family. Every subscription helps us keep bringing these stories to light. Now, let's open today's file. Ask almost anyone who discovered America. You'll probably hear the same answer. Christopher Columbus. The year, 1492. It's one of the first historical dates millions of people memorize. For generations, textbooks painted Columbus as the fearless explorer who crossed an unknown ocean and found a brand new world. Simple, clean, easy to remember. Except, history is rarely that simple, because Columbus himself never claimed he had discovered a completely unknown continent. He believed he had reached islands near Asia. That's right, the man credited with discovering America actually spent much of his life believing he had reached the edge of the East Indies. Crazy, right? Meanwhile, the people already living there had thousands of years of history behind them. Entire civilizations, languages, trade networks, cities, religious traditions, agriculture, astronomy. They weren't waiting to be discovered. They already knew exactly where they were. So the real historical question isn't, who discovered America? It's, who reached the Americas before Columbus? And that's where today's mystery begins. Because Columbus wasn't the first European many historians point to. Long before him, Norse explorers led by Leif Erikson are widely accepted to have reached parts of North America around the year 1000. Archaeological discoveries in Newfoundland helped confirm that story. But here's where things become much more controversial. For decades, researchers outside the historical mainstream have argued that African sailors may have crossed the Atlantic centuries before Columbus, not as slaves, not as passengers, but as navigators, explorers, merchants, kings. Some historians dismiss those claims entirely. Others argue they deserve more serious investigation. And somewhere between those two positions lies one of history's biggest unanswered questions. Could ancient African civilizations really have possessed the knowledge needed to cross one of Earth's largest oceans? Or is this simply a legend that grew larger over time? To answer that, we have to leave Europe behind and travel to one of the richest empires medieval history has ever seen, the Empire of Mali. When most people hear the words ancient Africa, they've already been conditioned to imagine poverty, isolation, or small kingdoms disconnected from the rest of the world. Nah, reality tells a very different story. Centuries before European colonial empires reached their peak, West Africa was home to one of the wealthiest civilizations on Earth, the Mali Empire. Its cities became centers of scholarship, commerce, architecture, and international trade. Gold flowed through its markets. Scholars traveled thousands of miles to study there. Merchants crossed deserts carrying salt, ivory, textiles, and precious metals. At the center of this empire stood one man whose wealth became legendary, Mansa Musa. Even today, economists struggle to estimate how wealthy he actually was. Some modern comparisons suggest that, Adjusted for today's economy, his fortune could have exceeded that of any billionaire alive. His famous pilgrimage to Mecca in 1324 became the stuff of legend. Historical accounts describe caravans stretching for miles, thousands of attendants, hundreds of camels, each reportedly carrying enormous quantities of gold. His generosity became so extravagant that some reports claim local economies temporarily struggled after so much gold entered circulation. Whether every detail is perfectly accurate is still debated. But one fact isn't: Mali possessed extraordinary wealth, and wealth creates something else: opportunity, including the opportunity to fund ambitious expeditions. Which brings us to one of the most fascinating stories preserved by medieval Arabic historians. A story involving hundreds of ships, a mysterious emperor, and an expedition that supposedly sailed west, never to return. Now here's where things get real interesting. Imagine being the ruler of one of the richest empires on Earth. You've got gold, you've got scholars, you've got engineers, and you've got ships. What would stop you from asking one question? What's beyond the horizon? According to medieval Arabic historian al-Umari, one ruler of Mali became obsessed with finding the answer. His account describes an emperor who reportedly believed the Atlantic Ocean didn't simply go on forever. He wanted proof, so according to the account, he ordered an enormous expedition to sail west. Some versions of the story describe hundreds of vessels leaving Africa's coastline. One ship eventually returned. Its captain reportedly claimed that the fleet encountered a powerful current in the open ocean. The ships ahead continued forward, eventually disappearing beyond the horizon, never to be seen again. Now hold up. Does this story prove Africans reached the Americas? Not by itself. Historians continue to debate whether the account was literal, symbolic, or exaggerated over time. But one thing is undeniable. This story existed long before modern debates about pre-Columbian exploration. And that's exactly why researchers continue studying it today. Because even if only part of the story is true, it raises a fascinating possibility. What if at least some of those ships didn't disappear? What if they actually landed somewhere? Most people picture the Atlantic Ocean as an impossible barrier. Thousands of miles, endless waves, certain death. But the ocean has something many people forget: currents, powerful currents, invisible highways moving across the sea every single day. Modern oceanographers have mapped these routes in incredible detail. Some currents naturally flow westward from Africa toward South America and the Caribbean. In other words, a vessel doesn't necessarily have to fight the ocean. Sometimes, the ocean does the work. Now don't get it twisted. Crossing the Atlantic would still have been incredibly dangerous. Storms, disease, limited food, navigation errors. All of it could end a voyage in disaster. But dangerous doesn't automatically mean impossible. History has shown us that ancient sailors often understood winds and currents far better than we give them credit for. Polynesian navigators crossed enormous stretches of the Pacific, using stars, waves, birds, and cloud formations. Arab sailors mastered long-distance navigation across the Indian Ocean. The Vikings reached North America using techniques that still amaze historians today. So the bigger question becomes, could experienced West African sailors have developed similar knowledge of Atlantic currents? Some researchers believe it's possible. Others remain skeptical. And that's exactly where the debate continues. Because possibility isn't the same thing as proof. Still, the ocean itself may not have been the obstacle people once imagined. Here's something a lot of people never hear. Ancient African societies weren't strangers to water. Far from it, across the continent, communities built canoes, riverboats, fishing vessels, and large trading craft adapted for local environments. Along the Niger River, transportation by water connected cities and markets. On the Nile, boats carried people and goods for thousands of years. Along the East African coast, Merchant fleets became part of vast Indian Ocean trade networks, linking Africa with Arabia, Persia, and Asia. So when somebody says, Africans couldn't build ships, nah, history says otherwise. The real debate isn't whether African civilizations built impressive boats. They absolutely did. The debate is whether any of those vessels were capable of crossing the Atlantic intentionally, or whether ocean currents may have carried some farther than expected. Those are two very different questions. And historians continue investigating both, because maritime technology doesn't leave behind easy answers. Wood rots, sails disappear, ropes decay, ships sink. Sometimes, all that's left is the story. Real quick, family. If you've been enjoying this journey through forgotten history, show some love. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Hidden Black Files if you haven't already. Word of mouth means everything. Every comment, every share, every subscription helps us keep digging through history's forgotten chapters. Now, let's keep going. This is where things start getting spicy. Over the years, researchers have pointed to several pieces of evidence they believe deserve closer attention. Ancient sculptures, travel accounts, artifacts, language similarities, ocean routes, even unusual cultural parallels. One of the most discussed examples is the colossal stone heads created by the ancient Olmec civilization in present-day Mexico. Some researchers have argued that certain facial features resemble people of African ancestry. Others strongly disagree, explaining that the sculptures represent indigenous Olmec individuals and that facial features alone cannot establish ancestry. It's one of the most debated subjects in ancient American archaeology. Then there are old travel records written by explorers who claim to have encountered dark-skinned communities in different parts of the Americas. Again, interpretations vary. Some historians believe these descriptions referred to indigenous populations with darker complexions. Others argue they could point to earlier migrations or contacts. The evidence simply isn't conclusive. And that's important, because real historical investigation isn't about forcing conclusions. It's about asking better questions. Could some clues have been misunderstood? Possibly. Could some deserve more research? Absolutely. Good history isn't afraid of uncertainty, because sometimes the mystery itself teaches us more than easy answers. Let's keep it 100. When people hear the phrase, "History is written by the winners," it sounds like one of those quotes everybody repeats. But there's some truth behind it. Every civilization records history through its own perspective. Empires celebrate their victories. Kingdoms highlight their heroes. Nations build stories that unite people. That doesn't automatically make those stories false. But it does mean history is often incomplete. And when new evidence appears, or old evidence gets re-examined, our understanding can change. We've seen this happen before. For centuries, many scholars dismissed the idea that Vikings reached North America before Columbus. Then archaeological discoveries at L'Anse aux Meadows in Newfoundland changed the conversation. Today, that's widely accepted history. The evidence led the way, not opinions. So when researchers ask whether Africans may have reached the Americas before Columbus, the real question isn't whether the idea sounds exciting. The real question is, what does the evidence actually support? And that's where opinions begin to split. Now hold up. This ain't as simple as saying, they're hiding the truth. Real historians disagree for different reasons. Some researchers argue that there simply isn't enough direct archaeological evidence to prove sustained African voyages to the Americas before Columbus. They point out that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Shipwrecks, settlements, written records from both sides, DNA, artifacts found in secure archaeological contexts. Those are the kinds of discoveries that can reshape history. Others believe the existing clues deserve far more attention than they've received. They point to historical accounts, ocean current studies, African maritime traditions, and artifacts they believe deserve fresh investigation using modern technology. And here's the thing. Both sides agree on one important point. More evidence is needed. Because history isn't a courtroom where one emotional speech settles everything. It's an ongoing investigation. Every excavation, every newly translated manuscript, every underwater discovery adds another piece to the puzzle. That's how real history works. Think about how much of human history still lies underwater. Thousands of ancient ships have never been found. Entire ports now sit beneath the sea. Wood decays. Metal corrodes. Storms erase evidence. The Atlantic Ocean has had centuries to hide whatever crossed it. That's why underwater archaeology has become one of the fastest-growing fields in historical research. Every year, new shipwrecks are discovered. Ancient trade routes become clearer. Lost civilizations reveal new secrets. Who's to say what future discoveries might uncover? Maybe they'll strengthen today's mainstream understanding. Maybe they'll challenge it. Or maybe they'll reveal something none of us expected. That's what makes history exciting. Not pretending every mystery is solved, but being willing to follow the evidence wherever it leads. Real quick, Hidden Black Files family. If videos like this make you think a little deeper than what you learned in school, show some love. Drop a comment below and let us know what you think. Do you believe ancient African sailors could have crossed the Atlantic? Or do you think the evidence just isn't there yet? Either way, keep it respectful. Some of the best conversations happen when people disagree with facts instead of insults. And if you're rocking with the channel, go ahead and subscribe. Y'all are the reason Hidden Black Files keeps growing. For real, we appreciate every single one of y'all. History has surprised us before. Nobody expected to uncover entire ancient cities buried beneath jungles. Nobody expected satellite technology to reveal lost civilizations hidden under desert sands. Nobody expected DNA science to rewrite family trees stretching back thousands of years. Yet, it happened. Again, and again, and again. So when someone tells you, everything important has already been discovered, nah, history doesn't work like that. There are still caves that haven't been explored, shipwrecks waiting beneath the ocean, ancient manuscripts sitting unread in archives, entire civilizations that remain partially understood. Every generation gets the opportunity to ask new questions. Maybe ours will answer one of history's biggest mysteries. Did African sailors reach the Americas before Columbus? Right now, the honest answer is, we don't know for certain. But asking the question, that's where discovery begins. Whether or not future evidence ultimately proves pre-Columbian African voyages, one fact is beyond dispute. Africa has always been part of world history. Not a footnote, not an afterthought. A major player, from the libraries of Timbuktu, to the engineering of ancient Egypt, to the trade networks of Mali, to the universities that attracted scholars from across continents. African civilizations helped shape the world in ways many people are only beginning to appreciate. And maybe that's the biggest lesson hidden inside today's mystery. Sometimes the most important discovery isn't proving one controversial theory. Sometimes it's realizing just how much history we've never been taught. Because once you start asking better questions, you start seeing the past differently. And once that happens, there's no going back. Picture this. It's the year 1492. Christopher Columbus drops anchor near islands he believes belong to Asia. He's convinced he's opening a brand new chapter in human history. But what if he wasn't opening a chapter at all? What if he was stepping into one that had already begun? That's the question historians, archaeologists, and researchers continue to wrestle with. Not because anyone wants to erase Columbus from history, but because history has a habit of becoming more complicated the deeper we dig. Some of the evidence surrounding possible African contact with the Americas is intriguing. Some of it remains heavily debated, and some claims simply haven't been proven. That's okay. Real history isn't built on certainty alone. It's built on curiosity. The willingness to ask difficult questions, to challenge old assumptions, and to let evidence, not emotion, guide the conversation. Maybe one day, a shipwreck resting thousands of feet beneath the Atlantic will change everything. Maybe an ancient manuscript, hidden inside an archive, will reveal a forgotten voyage. Or maybe new discoveries will strengthen the historical understanding we already have. Either way, the search continues, because history isn't finished. It's still being written. One thing is certain. Africa's story didn't begin with slavery. It didn't begin with colonialism. And it definitely didn't begin with the way many classrooms have chosen to tell it. Across thousands of years, African civilizations built kingdoms, created universities, mastered architecture, expanded trade, advanced astronomy, produced world-renowned scholars, and influenced civilizations far beyond their borders. Whether future discoveries ultimately prove regular transatlantic voyages or not, those achievements deserve to be studied, remembered, and respected. Maybe that's the biggest hidden file of all. Not that history was completely wrong, but that history is always bigger than the version most of us first learned. And family, that's exactly why this channel exists. To keep asking questions, to keep digging deeper, and to keep opening the files others overlook. If you made it all the way to the end, much love, seriously. Y'all are the reason this community keeps growing. Every like, every comment, every share, every new subscriber helps Hidden Black Files continue uncovering stories that deserve another look. If this video made you think, drop a comment below. What's your take? Do you think historians should devote more research to possible African voyages before Columbus? Or do you think the evidence isn't strong enough yet? Let's have a real conversation, respectfully. If you're new around here, go ahead and subscribe, because we've got a whole vault of forgotten stories waiting to be unlocked. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking questions, and remember, some of history's biggest secrets are hiding in plain sight. This is Hidden Black Files. We'll see you in the next file.